The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining this evening's professional development seminar with our presenter, Kim Wobick. I'll provide a brief introduction for Kim, and then we will get started with the professional development seminar. Kim has been a librarian for 16 years and has been with the Chicago Campus Library since 2009 and has been the campus librarian since 2013. As campus librarian, Kim's worked to increase the depth of library services provided to students across all of our campuses. She's recently completed her master's in psychology degree with the organizational leadership concentration from the Chicago School. Her ARP was entitled Coaching Part-Time Librarians, and Kim finds that in assisting students with the research process, the learning goes both ways, and she enjoys learning about students as well as their work. So Kim, thank you so much for joining us and presenting again with our professional development seminar series. And I will give you the presenter rights, and at that point you can begin the presentation. For all of our attendees, if you do have questions, please type your questions in the chat box and we will get to those questions as soon as possible. And go right ahead, Kim. Thank you.
Great, thanks Ellen, and thanks for having me here tonight. And I want to start out actually knowing that there are several people I know who have logged into this webinar, that I cannot stress enough that it's no one person that makes the library what it is and helps the students. We have librarians and staff at each campus here in Chicago, LA, and DC. And I'll say this more than once in the time that we're here together this evening, but we want you to contact us. So when you have questions, when you run into problems, that is what we're here for. All of the librarians, we feel fully a part of your research team, and we are here to make sure that you can be successful in both your coursework and whatever research you're doing. So again, I can't stress enough that we are all here for you. So what are we talking about tonight in specific? Let's get this going. Hello, there we go. So some of this may be review for some of you, especially if you've attended previous professional development webinars hosted by the library. We're going to talk about different ways to come at your searching. More specifically, how to use those resources that you have at your fingertips in a bit more powerful way. And hopefully we'll tell you a couple things that you haven't tried yet, as well as demonstrating a couple ways to use the resources that you use on a regular basis. And this includes talking about how you develop your search terms, as well as the databases you use, talking about those citations for the references that you find, and last but not least is talking about the number of results that you get from any given search. So first, and actually just to let you know, I do have a couple slides just to give us bouncing off points. We're going to spend most of our time in the library website, which is the coolest place to be. So first, let's talk about those search terms. So as you know, if you've heard me talk before, that your research really is a circle. For you, it may start out as a small circle because you're learning, and then as you build your knowledge and build the list of search terms that you have, it grows and grows. And also, what your searches actually are, think of them, and when you get stuck, and you will, we've all been there, what you need to do is remember that the searches you are developing to use in these resources are like mathematical formulas. You make them, they help you make the system work for you. And remember, you are the one that has power over the system or any system that you're using. So first, how do you find those search terms? So we can talk about synonyms, alternative spellings, acronyms, we'll talk about all that. Using the thesaurus in any of the databases that we have available, as well as examining subject headings. And then there's also some very specific tools that are used across most electronic resources. A couple that we'll talk about in particular is truncation, which is one of my favorite. Which goes hand in hand with the concept of wildcards. And then last but not least, nesting, which really makes your search strategy look like a complicated algebra formula. So let's start by taking a look for some of those search terms. And a couple of places that I like to look, backing up a half a step, you have a subject in mind. That's what you're going to search. So you have words that you use to refer to that subject. They may be words that you've already picked up from literature you've read, you've heard your instructors use them in class, you have the official words from textbooks. That's one grouping. However, what I've found over time that even though there are official words or terms to refer to specific concepts in the literature, there's still that author out there that might have a great article, but they throw in a couple extra terms because they think of that topic in a slightly different way. So how do you discover all that? Well, there's some really easy things to do that you actually learned in grade school and you might not even realize. So first, there's using the thesaurus. Admittedly, I like to have a print thesaurus in front of me, but I do refer all the time to the site, thethesaurus.com site online, which is very reliable. For example, you might be searching for literature on burnout, and that's how you think of it. But how else can you refer to the concept of burnout? Debilitation is one. And actually this is interesting because this is different than a search I did this afternoon, because stress should also be in here somewhere. But actually fatigue, weariness is one way to think of it as well. And then they do have some other types of synonyms that will lead you to perhaps other words. So don't let yourself, don't think that you can ever exhaust the lists or the search terms that you can add, because I don't think you really can. But what's another way that you can discover more synonyms? If we go to Ebsco, which you can get to through the library database, and one thing I didn't mention at the outset is that I will be concentrating specifically on the library database platforms. We will be holding more webinars in the future about using the library catalog, but the library catalog is really the best jumping off point to get you into the databases, so I wanted to give you some more tips and tricks to work within those. So one of the things that's available in Ebsco are dictionaries. The Oxford, excuse me, oh my gosh, it's late in the day, I'm sorry. The Oxford American College Dictionary is a really great place to gather some search terms as well. If we look up burnout here, so here's my favorite word, stress. But it gives you all of the definitions about it, as well as what it is, noun, adjective. So these are two places that you can look as a starting point. And we know you're not going to end up here. They won't be the final place you look. So what else are you going to look at? Since we're an Ebsco host, this is a great place to talk about those thesauri or lists of subject headings that each of the databases put together. So I'm going to click here on Choose Databases because, as you know, Ebsco is really the company that gathers all this information. These are all the databases. This is a list of all the databases that we have available that we provide to you through Ebsco, and it includes a wide range of information. So not only all of the psych databases from APA that should be included in every search you do, but also specific military and government information, multidisciplinary information, and some health-related information as well. And when we look at ProQuest, you'll see that it's almost the same in ProQuest. We have a very wide variety of information available to you in ProQuest as well. But what I like about Ebsco is the fact that our APA Psych databases are here. And why is that, you ask? So when I hover over subjects, you'll see that we have all of those databases selected, and it's about 30 databases at this point, but we don't have 30 specific subject lists here, but that's okay. So we're going to take a look at the Psycinfo thesaurus, which is my go-to. Psycinfo has been around forever, and the thesaurus is very well developed, very authoritative, and it changes your search a little bit, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes and how that happens. But first, let's stick with our burnout term. And you'll see, so your term, the keyword you're thinking of is burnout, but Psycinfo is telling us, well, we refer to it as occupational stress. And I'm going to go through and click on this. And what is really cool about this, it is a full-on thesaurus with some extra details. If it's a very obscure term, they will, or actually could be used for multiple meanings. The APA will provide a definition of what this term is so that you know that when you bring back literature with this subject term, occupational stress, that it's going to apply to something very specific. And what I think is most interesting is the historical aspect of this. So it's telling you that since 1973, the official term in APA has been occupational stress, even though we all refer to it as burnout. I don't really hear anybody say, oh, I'm so stressed out by my occupation today. Something to keep in mind. And then additionally, you are given a whole host of terms. So some may be narrower, some may be a little bit broader, like stress in general. And then some are related. So looking at all of these terms is really important because you may have some moments of indecision about your topic of research, and this may help guide you down the path that you would like to see your research go. Now, some of you may have noticed that I've used two terms here in the last 5 minutes. So we've used the term keyword for the words that you're thinking of as you start your search. And then when I started talking about occupational stress, I refer to that as a subject. So that is slightly different. So the way databases work, when you type in a keyword and say, even if you do this in Google, it's looking, the system, the back end of the system is looking in all of the information available about in every citation that they're searching or every piece of literature to return to you anything that is found with your keywords. It could be in the title, it could be in the article, it could be in the author's name, abstract, or the full text of the article. You may find that that's a lot of information that gets returned to you, and quite often it is. So this is where using subject terms or really building a larger search strategy helps you narrow down the list of results that will be returned to you. So in terms of the database, the subject term, when I use occupational stress, let me click this, and we are going to add this to our search box up here, and you'll find that now it has what's called a field code in front of it. So DE in Ebsco stands for descriptor. You'll also see it referred to as subject in some databases, so it's really up to the publisher as to what they're going to call it. But now you've basically entered computer language telling the system, I just want you to search in the descriptor code. And let's see what the difference actually is. So we got 22,000 results from searching occupational stress in the subject, but if we take away all of the symbols, and actually I'm going to leave the quotation marks around it, we should see a difference. And it's a sizable difference, especially when research shows, continues to show that none of us, not even librarians, are going to look past the first page of results. So I don't know anybody who would look through 58 pages of results. So as you start your search and you're not happy, you think this is too many, that there are ways that you can narrow that down. But so subject headings, you see those in a number of different capacities. If you are working in the medical field, one thing that I want to point out is that you may run across what's the medical subject headings, or MESH. I'm not going to go too in-depth into it, but you can access the MESH thesaurus here both in Ebsco and in Proquest, because we have medical databases in both. They are very specific to the medical industries, and they are used for articles indexed by the National Library of Medicine in the PubMed database, and then they reach across to other health databases too, because they are industry standards. So the good thing for us is that natural language searching, which is our keyword searching, will pick up some of those MESH terms too. So if you are doing some work in a medical area, and you want to make sure that you are getting all of the literature that you need to have. This is another thing I'll say a couple times. Please do give your library a call. Any of the librarians can help you with this. There's lots of, using MESH headings can be tricky. It really is a tree structure, and it's different from many other things that I've personally worked with. So it's helpful to have somebody there with you to help you navigate. Okay, so two other things we're going to work on here, and we'll switch our search terms a little bit. So we're actually, speaking of medical, the medical industries, we're going to switch to thinking about hospitals. So I was talking about truncation and wildcard, and you may have used these before, and like I said, truncation is one of my favorite things in the whole entire world. So let's say that you are interested, let's use the sample search of leadership and hospitals. Whoops, I've been spelling this word wrong all day. And you are interested in the role of therapists in leadership positions in hospitals. Now, this could cover a lot of ground, and at this point you're just beginning your search. You're not quite sure what context you'll find this in. So I'm going to stop here at the root of the word, and I'm going to put the little star symbol, which on your keyboard is right above the number 8. So this is always, the truncation symbol is the star, is used across all databases. You can also use it in Google Scholar, as you can use the previous symbol that I used to keep occupational stress together, the quotation marks. Those signal to the system, hey, this is a phrase, I don't want you to separate these words. And as you can see in our results here, most of the results did keep occupational stress together as a term. So we're going to pick up terms with our truncation symbol. We'll pick up therapy, we'll pick up therapist, it'll pick up therapists, therapeutic. So there might be some errant results in there that don't apply to you specifically, but this will give you a chance to see how this term is used in the literature about hospitals and leadership within hospitals. So as you're, like I said before, as you're starting, it's a good thing to kind of keep yourself open. And so at this point, so we have over 2,000 articles. And we have some journal articles, we have some videos, and a lot of this goes to Medline, which is a set of the PubMed medical literature. So that's good, you'd like to see that. And so at this point you can use, we also have literature going back to 1940. So I can't stress to use all of the tools that you have available to you in the database. You can't, usually I limit after, so if you just want scholarly journals, we can limit to that. I just want articles from the last 5 years. We're going to limit to that. And as you go down the list, one of the things that I also like about Ebsco is they really break out all of these categories here. These are all items that you'll find broken out within all of these articles. So it's telling you, hey, within this set, there's 34 empirical studies, 26 quantitative studies, and you notice that you can click on one of those categories, and so now you have a whole list of qualitative studies in front of you. So if that's the type of, for example, dissertation that you're doing, you have a whole a number of citations in front of you that might help you get started. And the other thing is the wildcard, which I don't use as much, and that is usually represented by the question mark. And the best example I have for that, let's say, you know what, let's stick with that hospitals search. And I should give everybody a prize for putting up with my misspelling. Oops. No. Ah! It's getting away from me. My apologies. Okay, anyway. So let's say you were interested in women in leadership in hospitals. So you notice I stop right here because the literature or the references you pull out could reference women, W-O-M-E-N, or woman, A-N, and you want to pull all of that together. Well, instead of making your search longer than maybe it has to be by adding both terms in, you can definitely use the question mark and leadership and hospitals. And so we should see in the results both woman and woman. And yeah, it's somewhere in there. That's very interesting that we see, here we go, the different contexts that you see these words in. But that brings up a good point, which we'll talk about in just a minute. I want to make sure you'll notice that I'm automatically putting the word and in between my search terms. I want to make sure that everybody is clear on what all that is about. But first, I want to make sure there's no questions right now. Okay.
Hi, Kim. I'm sorry, I was on mute. We do have one question, and it's more of a general question, but Eric asks, is EBSCO the best library option to use to search for articles, or does it depend on what you are searching and then use ProQuest or something other?
It definitely depends on what you're searching. I use EBSCO because I use it more often, and actually until about a month ago, this is where the majority of the databases that we had access to in the library were. But that's a really great point, and this also speaks to the fact that I mentioned before. We all get used to thinking in a certain way and searching in a certain way, and I can't stress enough, this is why I love working in the field that I do and talking to other librarians, talking to the people I work with every day. We all have a different perspective on this, and this is why in moving forward you should talk to your librarian or talk to a different librarian every time. And you'll also hear from different librarians in these webinars because we all have different perspectives. So there's no one right way to do any of this at all. So with that said, we can move to ProQuest, because I don't want to leave ProQuest out, because ProQuest is becoming a much more, not a much more powerful tool to use overall. So you see I automatically went to the list of databases, and it says 8. So we used to only have about 5 databases through ProQuest. We actually now have about 30 because we've just recently brought on board ProQuest Central, which is a collection of a multitude of databases. As I scroll down, I know you can't read this all, but it's very broad. It spans both medicine, health sciences, military information, education, criminal justice, and many business and reference databases that we did not have previously, that especially something like Hoover's company profiles that may be useful to you as you're developing a program for an industry and you'd like to explore what companies are interested in, what types of things. So we have, or the libraries have, a lot more reference or databases for you to search now. The one thing I do want to point out here that is still remains one of the most important things we have, but cannot be searched in the catalog just because it's not accessible through WorldCat, but most of the other databases are. But what I'm talking about here is ProQuest dissertations and theses. As far as a search strategy goes, this will be referred to a little bit later, but if you're working on any major long-term project, whether it be a dissertation, a white paper, or a thesis, that one of the first places I personally always recommend you should go would be ProQuest dissertation and theses. As a student writing or adding to the literature, one of your major jobs or one of your major tasks is to make sure you are adding to the literature. So dissertation and theses is global, as it says there. We have a full subscription, which means that you have access to the full text of all of the dissertations, almost all of the dissertations that are indexed in ProQuest. And that also includes the dissertations that have been written by Chicago school students in all programs. And this is also a good place to look up your advisor to see. I know a lot of advisors recommend that students come here to ProQuest dissertations and theses to look up the form of a dissertation that they've chaired previously, or even to look up their instructor's dissertation. A lot of people do that too. But this list also gives us another good feature, and that's descriptions. Oh, and I didn't talk about nesting, so if we have time, we'll talk about nesting. See, I get so excited about this, I do forget things. But one of the other things
Excuse me, Kim?
Yes.
Hi, Kim. Actually, Eric had just asked about nesting.
Oh, well, let's talk about nesting then.
Yes, he asked, for example, if I'm researching faith and leadership, how the two intersect and impact each other, would nesting be something that's useful, or would he use some other tactic?
Actually, in terms of that, what I would recommend, say if you're using several terms for faith, I can't even think of any right now, but it would be, here, I have a Word document open. So really, this is what nesting would look like. So, and this is what I was referring to before, that it would be an algebra equation. So if you have multiple terms that you want to bring together, let's say you wanted to put together faith and leadership, and it capitalizes automatically because it's Word, and education, let's say education and I don't even know. I'm just going to make up.
Actually,
yes.
Avril had suggested belief or faith.
Oh, thank you, Avril. All right. Oh, now I'm challenged to spell it correctly. Oh. Okay. Actually, this is a good time to talk about something specific. So what I'm doing here is nesting. So thanks so much, Avril, for the suggestion. So belief or faith and leadership, and let's capitalize this so it stands out, and I will make this a little bit bigger. So what am I doing here? So we are nesting, and what part of what nesting does is tell the database what specific order to search for your terms in. So when we put this into ProQuest, which we can go ahead and do, it's going to search for these terms belief or faith first. So it's going to pull all of the results that have either of those words in any part of the information about the article. And then it's going to search for leadership on top of that. But why am I using or and? So what or does, and I don't want to make assumptions that anybody knows this, but you may have already, because we automatically use and a lot and we don't even think about it. So and brings our terms together, because you think about, you want your terms to be friends in a sense, and if you're looking for multiple terms in your searching, that will tell the system, and you can have multiple terms strung together with the word and, it'll bring them all back to you, more or less. If you use the word or, and I just kind of referenced this, that it's going to search for anything that has, it could have just the word belief in the article or the word faith. It might have both, but you are not asking for that specifically here. If you put belief and faith, that would narrow down your results, because then it would just return everything with belief or faith, or and faith together in the same article. The most powerful operator that you can use is not, and you have to be super careful with this one. Depending on your topic, you may take out of your result list things that you might actually want to see. So in this context, maybe you are examining certain populations, or you find in your searches that you keep getting a certain type of article that really has nothing to do with what you want. So this would be your opportunity to add that word after the word not, and that will also help focus your search a little bit better. Does that make sense? Cool.
Yes, thank you very much, Kim.
Oh, you're welcome. So the other part of the challenge, actually if we go back to the slides, is to identify the right resources to use. As a default, I usually just stick to everything, mainly because I'm 95% of the time I'm helping people at the start of their searches, at the start of their literature search or their literature work. So it's a really good strategy. However, you have the opportunity to narrow that down. Using advanced search, this is what you do automatically in Ebsco. We have set up the system so that it directs you straight to advanced search, which really gives you some more wiggle room. There are other search strategy enhancers as well that we'll talk about in ProQuest. So first, for this area, we'll stick with ProQuest. So identifying the right databases. So actually sticking with faith and leadership, and I'm just making a note of that real quick. So you'll see here that there is a description of each of the databases. It's very short, but I think it gives you a good overview of what you'll probably find in there. But you'll also notice that, well, almost all of these are full text. And sometimes there will be more information. There's more info here. Sometimes they'll attach the full title list of all the journals that are included in a specific database, which you can also find in other areas of the platform. So if you are working on faith, on a search on faith and leadership, you might not be interested in ebooks. You might not be interested in public affairs, although I don't know, a lot of our modern world intersects in very interesting ways. So you might not be interested in banking information, so this might be something you can take out. But keep in mind that you can always narrow your the facets of your search later. So let's take out a few. So really it's just as simple as, oh, here we go. And this is where the title list is. So if you're interested in what titles are included here in ABI Inform, which is a really important and useful business database, it'll bring it right up for you. So it may help. And there is overlap in journal titles between the various databases, and that's because all the publishers work with all of the database companies, whether it be ProQuest, Ebsco, or other ones, to make sure that you can find their literature. And it comes up here as an Excel sheet, which I don't think we'll use right now. But so we deselected one database, so let's use our selected database. And here it took us to the basic search. ProQuest and Ebsco at the start are programmed a little bit differently. But so here I'm going to go to advanced search, and I'm going to type the two search terms on different lines. And the one thing we didn't talk about, but you may have noticed in Ebsco and you may have used in previous searches, are these drop-down menus. These are really useful to narrow down your search. So say, usually I leave a search to anywhere, and if you're starting search, it's kind of good to get a feel for everything that's out there. However, if you've already done that, you're like, I just want to refresh my search to make sure everything's on track. Limiting your, telling the system to just search in one piece of the article information, such as abstract or document title, is really useful. So let's take a look at the difference in those. So we're just going to search faith and leadership, and we're not limiting anything else at all. And we have quite a few results. And the nice thing about Ebsco is it also separates out with a tab automatically your ebooks, and then your journal articles and such are in the other tab. So let's go back to our search. We want to modify it. And it'll get there someday. So let's see the difference if we just search in the abstract. It narrowed it down quite a bit. So that could be useful to your research, most definitely. The other thing that I really, really like here about ProQuest are field codes. Now we've seen this a little bit. Now look at what it did to this search. So we've seen this in Ebsco when it added the DE for descriptor, and now that we specified that we wanted our search in the abstract, ProQuest, their abbreviation for abstract is AB, and that this is their language to tell the system. This is how it's translated. What you typed in, this is how the system translated it and returned these results back to you. There's another way that ProQuest allows you to get to this level. So when you feel super comfortable and maybe you have a really broad topic that you want to find different ways to kind of narrow it down. So not only will you have choices that are usually here down below, you can sort your results differently. You can select, from the get-go, I just want dissertations, I just want annual reports, that kind of thing. But when I click on command line, it gives me much more room. And each platform, so Ebsco has this too, and there's a little bit of an explanation here. You can actually put together your search strategy using these field codes and your operators, your and, or, and not, all together here in this command line search. So if you are doing a search and you want to feel like a programmer one day, this, just on one moment, this is a really good way to do it. However, what ProQuest has added here is they do provide you with a list of all of those field codes. So if you want to combine different authors' names with different document types, and then different subject terms, you can do that. So it's giving you the opportunity to select your and or not, and you'll notice a couple other ones here. We'll talk about that in a second. And then you also have your field code. And I'm going to try to scroll slowly, but you can see there is a lot. So that is telling you that not all of these field codes are applied to all the information from all of the databases, but you know that they really work to break out the different types of information. So if you do find that you have a need to do some really specialized searching, these field codes can definitely help you. So let's say, let's really mix it up here. Let's say you want faith, whoops. So we're looking for faith in the abstract, but I want to search, actually, anywhere except full text. We'll search for leadership there, just to get very creative, actually, and then, oops, click the wrong button, and then we'll do our search. And it will return a completely different number of results. And that was a really odd search, but it definitely narrowed it down. So that's one way you can do it. So we saw a couple other things in the advanced search. So actually when I went to the command line, let me get rid of this. So each of the databases will have tools that you can use to find words that are near each other. If you're looking for one word before another, a word or a word after, or within a certain number of words. So Proquest allows us to use near, so I want faith near belief, oops, or actually faith near leadership, and let's search for that, and that's a completely different set of results. So you notice that each one of these searches has returned a completely different set of results, and that could be depending on where certain words are indexed, what you're asking for. So it's worthwhile to play with this for a little bit because you do find different articles. I noticed that this time a lot of these are newspaper articles, which is interesting. Another way we can do this is I want to, just to show you kind of everything together. So another search I was playing with earlier is job satisfaction, and I want it near, I was actually doing in Proquest and Ebsco, so, or stress. So here we've put everything together. We've got our nesting, we've got our, the only thing we're not using here is field codes. And I think I need a space there. No. Yes, I did. So I did that incorrectly. And again, we've got a completely different set of results, but this one, all the initial citations happen to be journal articles. Okay, does that make sense to everybody? I'm talking a lot.
Thank you, Kim. This information is really fantastic, actually. A lot of information I wasn't aware of. We do have one question from Jennifer. She said, you mentioned ebooks a couple of times. Does
Yes.
the Chicago School use Overdrive for ebook access?
We currently do not use Overdrive, and I shouldn't say currently. We don't have any plans to in the near future because the databases, the ebook databases that we subscribe to, so here in ProQuest it's eBrary, they actually do supply their own readers. So it's the searching in the databases is quite easy, and you can read most of the ebooks directly here online. Couple things to point out. So here in eBrary, you see the whole book right in front of you. You've got the chapters right here, so you can choose to open up the book here online, look at a specific chapter. In Ebsco, it's a little bit different. They will break things down by chapters, so you can, but right away, so you can search by chapter and look at PDF copies of that. So while here in eBrary, it's all online. The important thing to know about our ebooks is that this one, that you have to look for the availability. This one happens to have unlimited access, which means that everybody on this webinar can go ahead and open this book right now and nobody will run into any issues. We do have a percentage of ebooks, especially here in eBrary, but also in Ebsco, that are only available to a certain number of users, and most of the time that's 3 users, so you may run into problems with a book in class where you can't open it and you're trying to do your reading for class. Well, that probably means that 3 of your classmates have that book open already, so you can send out a list or a message to the Canvas discussion list saying, hey, if you're done with the ebook, can you please close it so I can add to our discussion here in class. And that is something that we try to work around as much as possible when we purchase ebooks, but unfortunately the decision as to how many people can access an ebook isn't up to us, it's up to the publishers. So, but we try, we work very hard to make sure that the greatest number of users can access any of our ebooks.
Great, thank you.
Okay, we've got a couple more things to discuss. I'll try to be a little bit more quick. So part of what you're doing is, as you're doing your research here, you're actually joining the scholarly conversation in your area of study. So one of the ways to follow that conversation is through the citations. Now, why do you care about citations? There's so many reasons, but citations are a great resource for you as you're building your literature search. So not only do you want to give credit where it's due, and most of your instructors require this through in-text citations and APA bibliographies, but it's also, think about your research as following scientific method. That bibliography you're putting together basically is the list that I can take and I can see where your thought process was by searching for all of your articles. So as long as you've got the citations correct, I can go track down and read the same exact thing you read. Anybody out there can do that, and you really want that to happen. Well, it depends on what kind of study you're doing. Maybe if you're doing a study, you'll notice that between the methodology section of any given study and the bibliography, that many researchers will try to replicate people's work. So there are 2 ways to follow citations, and we won't dive too much into the actual databases at this point because we're running short on time. So to follow citations, you can do it backwards or you can do it forwards. So when would you do these things? So following citations backwards is really tracing the history of a thought or a concept, and it tells you really what sources, ideas, and theories influence that specific researcher, and telling you where their mind was at when they wrote. And so the opposite going forward, if you're looking at older citations, it's really useful to search forward from a citation, and we'll talk about how to do that more because I think students that I've worked with here at the school usually are more concerned about doing forward researching. And so part of that is finding out is if that article, that older article, has been cited at all by anybody. It gives you an idea of the level of importance of the research of that author, of their area of interest, and actually the databases in general in both Ebsco and Proquest, and the two I'm mentioning here that we'll talk about briefly, Web of Science and Google Scholar, work very well with doing a forward following of citations. And as databases do, so you'll see different tools within the databases, they all basically do the same thing. They do call it something different. That's important to keep in mind. For example, in Ebsco, they use the terms or have links for time cited in database. They also say cited references. Now those will both be links that will lead you backward and forward. The SAGE database, which we haven't touched on yet, uses the phrase articles citing this article. So a lot of it is self-explanatory, but just be aware that you're not looking for the same phrase anywhere you are. So let's talk a little bit about Web of Science and Google Scholar. And if you haven't used Google Scholar yet, I do recommend it. I use it myself. They both have their pros and cons. So let's talk about Web of Science first. And many of you may not have used this resource. It's a really great place to trace that literature, but how do you find it? So Web of Science is multidisciplinary. It's all journal articles. It is international. So to locate it, I'm going to go to the All Databases page here on our website. And here in this box listed A to Z, list of databases, I'm going to scroll all the way down. And because this is an alphabetical list, you'll find it here at the bottom. So when you click on it, it will take you there. So you might be asking yourself, so I don't have a specific citation to search for, because usually what if you're searching citations, you have a specific article title. So here in the search box, you can put that article title here in Web of Science. It also allows you to search by topic or a number of other different pieces of information. And actually, you know what, just to get us to something, because I'd hate to talk about something and you can't really see it. So I just typed in something really, really broad. And so you'll see here, so it gave us a list of results, and the most recent, it defaults to the most recent results first. So we've got articles that might not even be in your mailbox yet. So if we go, but we're going to resort this list. Let's look at the oldest first, because that will have the most impact. So we've got some random things here from 1918, which nobody has cited. Those poor authors. Oh my gosh. And yeah, I told you it was international. So you can also limit here by language. But let's take this for example. So here's an article published in 2010 from a symposium. Now if I click on this, on the title, so it's giving me all the information you would expect to see about this particular article. And here in Web of Science, when we look on the right-hand side, it's telling you how many times it's cited, and it's also giving you some more information like where it is, how often it's been used, and what the most recent article that has used it is. So it gives you a lot of good information right up front. So if you want to know what articles have cited it, click on that, 3 times cited, and now you're following the trail. So, but it only lists 2 articles here. So it did that because one of these is probably a duplicate. Now let's take this same title and let's go ahead and search it in Google Scholar. Now I apologize, this isn't the best example, but, and here we have, but wait a minute, Web of Science, and it's telling us right here, is 2. Why is there only 1 citation here from Google Scholar? Well, let's talk about why. So the difference really at the core between Web of Science and Google Scholar is that Web of Science is an actual vetted database. It's curated by humans, and what they do is they limit their searching to just the abstracts of the article. It is not a full text database. So it searches a little bit more, the search results that you'll get back will be a little bit more relevant. So articles are tagged with info about the structure of the article, such as if it's a review article or a say a twin study, for example, it will be tagged with that type of information. What's most important, because it is curated by humans and the information is very well indexed into the various fields that they look at, the search results are reproducible and reportable in the literature that you're putting together. And this is important in some certain types of studies, such as systematic reviews. So, and it does track citations a little bit more thoroughly. Google Scholar, on the other hand, while it's a great resource and you can connect it to the library databases, it's a machine. It's at the heart of it, it's a machine. There's no human interaction with the information. It is all machine automated, and it searches the full text of the articles. So the results that you get back when you're doing, say, topic searches will be radically different between the 2 databases, and they will include things that aren't necessarily authoritative or perhaps even legal for you to download. Think about the fact that results in Google Scholar can include Google Books, which may or may not be the complete book, articles from publishers' websites, from faculty websites, which may not always be accessible to you. Google Scholar also includes things like conference proceedings and other types of reports, which aren't included in Web of Science. They focus there on journal articles. So while Google Scholar may return some more robust results to you than Web of Science, I don't always trust everything I get from Google Scholar because it's not all authoritative. But at the same time, I do want to say using both resources side by side is a really good idea. Now, I just did a brief overview on that, so if you would like more information moving forward in your research on doing this type of citation searching, I told you I was going to say this more than once, contact your librarian. So let's leave it with analyzing the number of results that you get. And we've kind of talked about this throughout this whole presentation. So let's say you've got so many results returned to you that you can't even think about how to really go about evaluating all that. So bring in those limiters. Sort your references or the results in different ways. You saw that I did that in Web of Science. You can do that in every database. You can sort by date. You can sort by relevance. You can sort by well, relevance and date are the most popular ones. I was thinking of popularity, but I think you can only do that in Amazon. The other thing you want to think about, if you don't have enough, you don't feel you have enough results, are again, maybe using limiters, but also taking them away. Maybe stretch out the time span you're looking at, or add a term or add a synonym. Probably most importantly is look at the bibliographies of the articles that you do like and do searches on those. What are the subject terms within those articles? Add those to your search list. Do you keep coming back to certain journals? We can look up the journal in the databases. You can browse through the issues of the journals. And last but not least, ask yourself questions about your topic. So if it's too broad and you want to limit it a little bit, are you interested in a certain time, a certain place, or a certain population, or maybe an event that pertains most to your subject area? And on the flip side, if you're looking to broaden your search a little bit, think about those synonyms. What could broaden the focus of your search? And you still might want to focus on a person or a group, but what else were they involved in? Where else did that group or that person have impact? So there are a number of different things that you could ask yourself to really kind of stretch that search out for you to get you more results. So, whoops. So again, I will leave you with this thought. Ask your librarian. That's what we're here for. When you get stuck, and we will help you get unstuck. We can answer your questions about using the library resources, how to get resources. You can just call or email us and talk to any of the library staff, or if you want some dedicated one-on-one assistance, we can schedule an appointment with you. We can meet with you. We can talk to you on the phone. We can meet in person if you're on a specific campus, or we can meet via GoToMeeting. We do it all the time, and it's one of our favorite things to do, speaking for myself. So I want to thank you all for attending today, and if there's any more questions, please let me know.
Thank you so much, Kim, for an excellent presentation. We don't have any additional questions, but we do have some feedback from our attendees. Dr. Richard Flores said, though I've used Thesaurus and ERIC and some in other databases and search engines, my knowledge of more advanced / alternative search strategies has been pushed to another level through this session. Wonderful. Thank you, and I sure hope some students of mine are here today. And we also have some feedback from Eric that said, thank you both. This was awesome. Will you send a copy of the PowerPoint? And I'm signing off and may send a follow-up email to thank Kim. So also very thankful for the presentation.
Oh, that's great to hear.
So I'd like to just let everyone know that a recording of this presentation will be available on the NCAID YouTube channel by tomorrow morning. So please be sure to take a look at that if you would like to view the recording of the presentation again. We also have all of the other professional development seminar recordings available on that YouTube channel as well. So be sure to check those out. And Kim, thank you again for an excellent presentation and for being available to our students.
Oh, we're happy to be here. Thanks for having me. This was a lot of fun.
All right, well, take care. Everyone have a wonderful evening, and Kim, we hope to have you again soon.
Okay, thanks. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you.